This week on Across the Arrowverse, the best of Detective Comics is put on display. We went to the DC exhibition Dawn of Superheroes. Hi everybody and welcome to the show. I'm your host Matthew Vose. I'm on my own this week because I was fortunate to go to the media preview event for a new exhibition that's opened at the O2 in London, DC exhibition The Dawn of Superheroes. This has been on display for many months during 2017 at Art Ludique La Musée in Paris, in France at least. I think it's in Paris. Yes, it's in Paris. Art Ludique, Playful Art. It's a museum that focuses on comics, manga, film, animation, video games, art from non-traditional art origins. And they ran this exhibition, which I think over there was called The Art of DC, focusing particularly on the Trinity, so Superman, Batman and Wonder Woman, but about the origins of these characters, their portrayal through comics, through concept art, through the live action and animation adaptations we've had of them, and many different things. It's now transferred to the O2, so it opened this week in February, and it will be running until September. The official docket for it describes it as having exclusive artworks from the recent films, from the classic films, from the Dark Knight trilogy. It features more than 200 original comic pages, around 300 preparatory sketches and concept artworks, and 45 original costumes, models and props for the used in the iconic films. And I think that's the biggest thing I took away, almost within 10 minutes of walking around. There is so much content on display at this exhibition. There are some that you go to where it feels like a lot of content because there's only one or two rooms, so they're packing it in. But this was packed in, and then there's room after room after room. There's a section that is the history of DC, and then it goes into Superman, so you start seeing costumes from classic Superman movies, from the recent movies, from Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman. That's several rooms worth. You've got a whole thing on films that weren't made. You've got a thing on Kryptonite. You then go into the Batman room, and there are a number of rooms on Batman. Huge models out there. The Bat Pod from the Dark Knight is on display, so obviously that takes up a fair amount of space. And then you have a couple of rooms for Wonder Woman. Then you have a room for Justice League and other heroes. Then you have a small cinema showing at the end with a reel of the most interesting art and how it's been adapted. The whole thing was just, it was magnificent. It was so impressive to see such a collection on display. I actually started recording this as I was there. I took a seat in that cinema and started recording. So there's 2 minutes of me talking in low tones so as not to disturb anyone else in the exhibition. And I realised I was just rattling off all the different things that I'd seen because I was so excited because there were so many impressive pieces of artwork, origin stories, information about the development of the way this was transferred to be a live-action production. So I don't want to spoil it for anyone. I don't want to go into the detail about what's there. You should definitely go and check this out if you're in London. There is a book to accompany it, which looks like it has information on every exhibit that was there. For reference, there are 246 pages in this book, so that tells you just how much content was on display. Like I say, there was a very big focus on the Trinity, so Batman, Superman and Wonder Woman. Most of the rooms are devoted to them, and they are the three who have starred in the biggest films for DC, the most successful. I don't think there was anything from the Green Lantern film. I'm not too surprised about that. It was really interesting to see the development of particularly Superman over the years, the different styles of the cape, the outfit, the different ways the different directors and people taking on Superman had styled him slightly differently. There was even a section talking about Superman Lives, which the Tim Burton version never got made with Nicolas Cage. The whole exhibition is actually supported by an audio gadget. So you type in the number of the section you're at, and you obviously hold it up close to you, but you can hear information about what's going on. So it'll be really good for families, people who want a bit more in-depth without having to stand around and read everything as they go. But there was a lot to just take in by looking, just to see, here is a comic, then here is concept art, then here is an actual live action version of that thing, that costume, that prop, that model. I was really lucky that I got to speak to Jean-Jacques Lonnier. He is the founder and president of Art Ludique, and he is the curator for this exhibition. So they've run a number of exhibitions at their museum in Paris on Studio Ghibli, on Marvel, on video games and Pixar. So DC's the latest that they've done. He was a fascinating person to talk to. He is clearly so thrilled at this exhibition and so proud of what he's put on. He kept just talking about how iconic it was and the great things that they had, and that when they'd done visits to sets to go and have a look at what they were developing, going into the Warner Bros. Archives. It was a bit noisy, so I'm going to put the recording of the interview in. I've cleaned it up as much as possible. I've made sure you can hear him a lot better than you can hear me. But he just talks with such passion about everything that's on display. And to the extent, I hadn't started recording by the time he'd launched into telling me about the exhibition, how excited he was. And like I say, this chap is so excited to be putting this on and so excited to be with people who are enjoying it as much as we all were. So I'll put the recording on now. Please enjoy.
I guess you have been only to the Batman room, but you will see then there will be Wonder Woman.
You really passed out with everything. So
well, it's 3 years of work, and we are really proud because I think it's a one-of-a-kind exhibition. It's the first time that Warner and DC are so involved in that process. They allowed us to come and see the sets of Wonder Woman, of Justice League, so we met everybody. And of course, we've been many times in Burbank to select in the archive the costumes that we wanted regarding the layout that we had in mind, and the chat between the cover, the page, the artworks, the costumes, in order to show to the audience that those are iconic characters are evolving through the time and through the point of view of the artists, such as Neil Adams, Frank Miller, Tim Burton, Zack Snyder. So but they are iconic characters who have been created by teenagers, and they change the point of view of everything because it's a genre who is only 18 years old, but that's influenced fashion, design, pop art, street art, television. Yes, and it's important, and this is the purpose of our museum as well. It's to explain to a large audience that behind blockbusters or production or video games that they love, there is amazing artists, and it's all about drawing, painting, sculpting, and those guys are really the greatest contemporary artists, actually.
Coming up, and you've got examples of everyone throughout the years. There's so much on display here. It's really impressive. Is there a highlight for you? Is there anything you think I'm so pleased to have this either as a room or an exhibit?
Really, I think it's very well designed in London, so it works like we did in Paris. It's exactly the same that the French team and the English team will work together. We had some pieces from Alan Davis, for example, who is but it's almost the same. So most of those pieces have never been seen. So it's like I said, it's a one-of-a-kind exhibition. You have the authentic costume, of course, of Christopher Reeve, of Heath Ledger, of Michel Pfeiffer, as you saw, and of course Gal Gadot and Linda Carter. And so it's fantastic. But you also have the story through the audio guide, through the caption, who are explaining how Wonder Woman was created, how Superman, what Wonder Woman brings to the superhero, and who was Charles Moulton as well, the creator, because he was such a character. And of course Harley Quinn, how she was created through Bruce Timm animation movies. So you have original from Bruce Timm as a Harley Quinn, like she used to be in the animation, and then she was created in the 90s through animation movie, but then she jumped in the comic. She was not created in the comic. And then of course she became more famous through such a absolutely. So
there's so many examples of that. Around it, like you say, you've got each different movie, each different era of movie on display.
Yeah, we want to tell the story of DC, including the Fletcher studio, for example. Yeah. It's in the Fletcher in the 1940 that Superman is flying for the first time. In the comics, he was only jumping. Yes. And we also are explaining that Miyazaki, Hayao Miyazaki, the Japanese director, tells that this is a major inspiration for him, especially for the robots it's in that clip. So you will learn to that in the audio, but the robot is very close from Miyazaki robots, and he told that yes, it's an inspiration from
Miyazaki
as well. Yes. I know Miyazaki personally. I did already 2 exhibitions with him, and his major influence was, of course, guys like Moebius, but it's interesting to see that Fletcher has been an inspiration for him as well.
Like you say, the DC characters, the artwork is such an icon throughout the years.
And it's important for the audience to understand, and you will discover, for example, that Gotham City used to be a medieval English city. No one knows that, but it was a city during King Jean, and King Jean was supposed to visit Gotham City, but when the king was coming in the city, all the people has to pay for his visit, so they didn't want to pay, and they pretend at the time that they were all mad. So and at the time, people was afraid because they thought that you could catch madness
right.
if you are close from and so they avoid to go there, and Gotham City became city of madness, city of mad people. And in the 19th century, a writer called Washington was writing about New York, and he took Gotham City as an example, saying that New York was the city of madness, and New York was Gotham City. And that's why even if the very beginning of Batman comics takes place in New York, in a few numbers after it's becoming Gotham City.
Okay, so that transition.
It's an English city.
Interesting.
There is plenty of things. That's the purpose of the exhibition, is to explain that it is connected to history of art, of course, but the Joker is coming from the playing card from the 14th century. So the connection, the bat is connected to the vampire as well, so it's great literature. So there is
this
connection.
Folklore.
Yes. And it's important to show to the audience that behind what they love, there is amazing art, especially for the kids. And of course, I think that could give them some vocation. If they are talented, they could want to draw, of course, but if they are good in maths, they also can be involved in the production, in the special effect, in the texturing, the lighting, the animation.
Exactly.
So the design. That's why we met Zack Snyder, Christopher Nolan, Michael Wilkinson, Mediami, to explain the way they were to explain their inspiration. For example, the inspiration of Lindy for the Heath Ledger costume, because she was not really aware about the comics. So when Christopher Nolan asked her to create realistic costumes, she was thinking, well, she did not know the story of the Joker. She didn't really know, but she was thinking, well, who now is wearing incredibly purple jacket, green hair? And she said, well, it has to be Rockstar. So she took her inspiration from Pete Doherty, from Keith Richards, from Alice Cooper. So that shows to the audience that this is the reflect of our society, and characters are iconic, but they are evolving with our society.
Terrific. Great. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
What's up next for Art Ludique?
Oh, it's still secret, but it's actually it's going to be Japanese stuff.
Terrific. We will make a trip over to Japan.
Yes, with pleasure.
Thank you.
Like I say, he was just such a thrilling chap to chat to, and we had a quite a vibrant conversation. Like I say, I've had to clean up the audio a bit so you can hear him more clearly. But we were walking around to have a conversation with someone who's curator of an exhibition about DC, whilst walking around costumes worn by Christopher Reeve, worn by Henry Cavill. Terrific. That was a great experience. I didn't get the chance to speak to Lindy Hemming, who was also there. She is the costume designer who worked on the Dark Knight trilogy, on Wonder Woman. She was doing a lot of interviews, obviously, because everyone wanted to speak to these people. But they also had video of her talking about some of the costumes that she developed. And again, it's just so fascinating to hear the different takes that they had as they come into it. So she was picking up costumes that had been developed for Wonder Woman through the years and designed in comics, as well as had been designed for the Batman vs. Superman film, that she then incorporated some of that and evolved it for the Amazonians on Themyscira, on how she decided to give Wonder Woman a cape and the way they fit that in to put that on her during the story. So you could see that was someone with such a high passion for what she developed, and really keen insight on bringing together some of that sort of the Greek mythological elements of Wonder Woman's backstory, the modern elements, incorporating some of her styles for the scenes that are set today, as well as the scenes that are set in the First World War. You'll be pleased to hear that the heroes from the Arrowverse were not left out. There was a final room that was on Justice League that actually went into other heroes in the DC canon, and it talked about the evolution of Green Arrow as a counterculture movement character, very much supporting the downtrodden, or the people who had a fight they wanted to take up, and the way they evolved the character into that during the 70s and 80s. There was information about Green Arrow, about Aquaman. There were some wonderful original versions of Flash covers that were really interesting to see, the development of those covers, how they designed them originally and adapted them as they went on. So everyone got included. There was so much to see. I would recommend everyone to go and check out this exhibition. I think if you're like me, you're into comics, into these characters, and you want to go and see it, you'll get something out of it. If you have kids who are into it, they will love seeing some of those costumes up close. They will love being able to see the scale of some of them. There's several of those Batman costumes. If you've seen the Captain America shot before he becomes all buff and he's looking at the soldier and he can't even put his face to the same height as the soldier, it felt like that with the Batman costumes. It was just so massive. To see some of these models and the designs and the concept of what they do, and you can see how they designed things without necessarily having the actors in place. Heath Ledger's Joker costume was in there, and you could see the designs, what Lindy Hemme was basing it on, as she talked about the idea of it being rock stars, pompadours, Pete Doherty, people like that. That was who she was using as some of that concept. And there's nothing in there that looks like or feels like Heath Ledger until you get to the point of the actual shots of him, the actual styling of him once he's cast. So she had these ideas before you even had such an iconic person in the role. Like I say, the exhibition is open from February 23rd until the 20th of September, I think it is. Definitely much later in the year, so it's worth seeking out. It's at the O2 in London, so if you're in London for any reason, that is one to go and visit. The O2 itself is a great day out. I've actually a number of times gone to see things there. They had a Game of Thrones exhibition on my birthday a few years ago. There was good fun, and then there's a lovely steakhouse, and then there's a cinema as well. So we went to see Big Hero 6. So that was a good day out for all. This is called the DC Exhibition, Dawn of Superheroes. So that's how you can go and look it up, book tickets, and make sure and go and see it if you can. The Arrowverse is back on TV this week, so we are expecting next week we will actually be bringing you an episode of Arrow, The Flash, and DC's Legends of Tomorrow. So we are back into full swing. We will be picking up Constantine again. I think we've stopped at a really good point because I can see we're about to get into a two-parter, which feels like the season's going to start spinning on from there. So that'll be quite exciting to pick up. We will speak to you next week when we are back on with the regular TV schedule.
Across the Arrowverse is an Eloquent Gushing production. For more shows you'll love, please visit eloquentgushing.com.